So speaking of stupidity, Chris Cuomo goes on, and Chris Cuomo is doing everything he can to incite a riot. And this is what he said. This is cut 6.
Too many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets. Persistent and poisonous inequities and injustice. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful, because I can show you that outraged citizens are the ones who have made America what she is and led to any major milestones. Be honest, this is not a tranquil time.
I'm smart, not like everybody says.
He said, show me where protests are supposed to be peaceful. The First Amendment grants you the right of the people peaceably to assemble. There it is, Chris. Now you know. It's like I showed it to you. It's in the Constitution that you're supposedly protecting. And the idea, you know, the civil rights movement succeeded because of Martin Luther King. That's why the civil rights movement succeeded. It succeeded because white people in America looked at those peaceful marches and looked at the dogs being set on the peaceful marchers, and they said, you know what? These guys have a point. These guys have a point. We got to think about this. And white people, as Shelby Steele has written repeatedly, white people accepted the shame and made a change. It's the left that hasn't accepted that change has been made, and it obviously has. It obviously has. And when you say, you know, they're allowed to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress, what redress are they looking for? You know, police are desperate to try and modernize their police techniques to give them better neighborhood policing. That is what they're trying to do. What is their program? The people showed up at Eric Garcetti, the mayor of LA's house. A mob showed up outside his house demanding that he defund the police. John Legend, the musician, and Megan Rapinoe, the soccer star, they signed a defund the police letter. Well, what I would like, how about we defund the police in neighborhoods that vote to defund the police, and in neighborhoods where we support the police, we get those funds. We get double the funds. How about that? What the hell do you think would happen if you defund the police? What on earth do you think would happen if the police aren't in your neighborhoods? Heather McDonald, who I hope will come on the show, I'm going to ask her to come on tomorrow if she has time. She wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal, great piece about the myth of systemic police racism, okay? And by the way, you know, any cop will tell you there are bad cops. Any cop will tell you there are bad. Any good cop will tell you, yeah, some of these guys should not be walking around with a bat. 800,000 of them. This population of San Francisco worth of police in this country, they're going to be bad cops. Nobody can magic that away. But here's what Heather says. She says, in 2019, police officers fatally shot 1,004 people, most of whom were armed or otherwise dangerous. African Americans were about a quarter of those killed by cops last year, 235, a ratio that has remained stable since 2015. That share of black victims is less than what the black crime rate would predict, since police shootings are a function of how often officers encounter armed and violent suspects. In 2018, the latest year for which such data have been published, African Americans made up 53% of known homicide offenders in the U.S. and commit about 60% of robberies, though they are 13% of the population. This is what I was telling you on Monday, I think it was. The police fatally shot 9 unarmed blacks and 19 unarmed whites in 2019. According to a Washington Post database, down from 38 and 32 respectively. So they've been working to get these shootings down. The Post defines unarmed broadly to include such cases as a suspect in Newark, New Jersey, who had a loaded handgun in his car during a police chase. In 2018, there were 7,407 black homicide victims. Assuming a comparable number of victims last year, those 9 unarmed black victims of police shootings represent 0.1% of all African Americans killed in 2019. By contrast, police officer is 18 and a half times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. So again, it's narrative. Why are these riots mostly peaceful? But it's not cops who are mostly in danger from bad guys in the black community. You know, this is, let me go on with Heather's thing. On Memorial Day weekend in Chicago alone, 10 African Americans were killed in drive-by shootings. Such routine violence has continued. A 72-year-old Chicago man shot in the face on May 29th by a gunman who fired about a dozen shots into a residence. 2 19-year-old women, and so on, being killed by blacks, black on black killings. Somebody on Twitter today said to me, how many murders do you have to witness before you care? Saying to me, how many murders? Because I was saying that this atrocious killing of George Floyd doesn't prove systemic racism. How many murders? Well, how many murders do you have to see before you care? How many murders? Does it only? Let's hear from some of the people, right? Let's hear from this lady in the neighborhood. This is cut 3.
It's free reign. There's nobody at the checkout, but this just pulled a gun out on not just me, but 5 other black females, and y'all sitting up here really pretending like y'all did this shit over black lives. A black man who looks like me, who should be out there protecting me, just pulled a gun out on me and 5 other sisters. So y'all tell me, keep lying to yourself, talking about this is about black lives.
So whose lived experience are we reporting? How about the lady whose store was trashed and she was talking about that? Twitter took that down, took that video down. Knowles reposted it. But Twitter took it down, this black lady saying her store was trashed. Whose lived experience are we talking about? It is all narrative. It is all selective narrative from the left, It's burning your cities. That's what's burning your cities. Everything is tickety-boo, including the massive growth of the Daily Wire YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and catch all our future videos right here on YouTube.